There's a good chance that if you've seen my channel before, you know a thing or two about the Persona franchise. That said, if you're someone interested in getting into the series, it may be a little confusing as to where to start, or maybe not. A lot of people are pretty helpful when it comes to that. So you can think of this to tell you where you could start your adventure. And if you've someone with more insights or any different opinions, you could leave your order down in the comments below and give explanations as to why. I think that would help garner discussion.
English again.
The identity of Persona has changed a lot in the last 20 years. Simply put, there's a lot of reasons people will talk about Persona 5 and not Persona 1 and 2. They're not entirely wholly different games at their core, but there are definitely a lot of large differences between the two. But the biggest issue is probably that 1 and 2 are not on all modern platforms. There is no way to play these games officially on current generation hardware. So in short, you probably won't be starting from the very beginning. That said, it's not like you can't start from 1 and 2, and I think if you do, you'll find a lot to appreciate. But your experience will be pretty different. 3 through 5 are considered the modern Persona games. I think now it might be a little bit more appropriate to call them the Hashino Trilogy, as Hashino is no longer directing the Persona series after that. However, 3 is a little mucky with that, so we'll talk about that later. It's also pretty funny to refer to them as the modern trilogy when 2 of them are basically still PS2 games, but whatever. The most important thing is that these 3 games are very accessible. You can buy them on modern systems and access them easily. There are no technical barriers to hop over, it's just the decision you need to make.
Persona 5 Royal!
So I've stalled long enough talking about things you may or may not care about, so let's talk about where to start. I genuinely believe that technically the best starting title is Persona 5 Royal. This is because both on a gameplay and visual scale, it is probably the most welcoming to new players. Even with the remake Persona 3 got, I still think this. 5 spends a lot of time teaching you how things work. It's fairly snappy and to the point, but the game doesn't really let you off the leash for at least several hours. Some may find this to be too handholdy, and that's fine, but playing this first will give you time to get accustomed to all the systems the game has to offer. I would argue that 3 and 4 let you off the leash a lot faster, and playing 5 after you've been let off the leash really easily may not come feeling as well to you. If you really can't stand the thought of being handheld though, it may be better to start off with Persona 3. But in my opinion, the current best way to experience the series is 5, 3, 4. A little bit of a weird order, but we could talk about it a little bit here.
Persona 3!
Persona 3 is also a complex case. First off, the game has 3 versions. 4 if you count the original, but I'm not going to because it kind of mucks up the decision to very specific things. FES, Portable, and Reload each have their own strengths and weaknesses. FES, however, is pretty much inaccessible officially unless you own a PS3. This one is the original form of P3, and if you want to align with the original creator's artistic vision, then you might want to play this one. There will be some gameplay differences and things that you may kind of find unbearable. If you just want to experience the original artistic vision, then FES kind of is the place to go for that. As for Portable and Reload, the problem remains of content only existing in one or the other. Unfortunately, Reload did not wind up being a definitive version of Persona 3, as Femc is still trapped in Portable Purgatory. For the uninitiated, P3 technically has 2 protagonists. Reload did not and probably will not adapt the female protagonist route, meaning the only way to experience this is via Portable, which is a dumbed down version of P3 made for the PSP. I would say 9 out of 10 times, I would recommend Reload over Portable to new players, and if you really want to experience Femc's adventure, then playing Portable after is fine. I don't personally have any reasons to go play FES since Reload is getting the remaining story as DLC, but again, that's up to you. And as I said before, the reason I don't totally recommend P3R as your first Persona game is because I feel like this game doesn't really give you amazing guidelines, it kind of just lets you off the leash. And since the way the time slots are structured leaves very little room for error, if you want to experience all the content in the game, you're probably better off playing another one first so you understand what it is you need to do. It's not a bad game to start on, but it's not the one I'd recommend.
Persona 4 Golden?
Persona 4 has no remake. The game begins and ends with Golden. At least for now. P4G isn't bad, but it is dated. I put it last basically to say that if you're still enjoying your Persona experience and want more, then 4G is there for you. I still think it's a phenomenal game, but it's got some edges that just aren't as ironed out, and the presentation is not as on the scale of Persona 5 and 3. To simply put it, play P5R, P3 Reload, and then P4G. You could also technically play P4G first, since it's more outdated, so that you can see the new things that get added. Not a big deal, but I think this is probably the better order to go about it. But again, it's just my opinion. It's not the official, this is how you have to play the series kind of thing.
Seconds, please.
And if you finish those games and you want more Persona, well, unfortunately, you're gonna have to wait till Persona 6. But if you're willing to dive into some spin-off titles, we've got a lot to offer. You like fighting games? There's a spin-off for that. If you like rhythm games, we got 3 of those. If you like tactics games, there's one of those too. And action games, we got one of those. That's probably widely considered the best spin-off of the series. Persona has a lot of avenues you can follow after completing mainline titles, but I'll keep it snappy because I've said this 1,000 times. Here's the order you should play the spin-offs in. You can pause the video here to look at it longer, I guess. And if you really want more main series-esque gameplay, you can play Persona 5X on your phone or on PC with the auto-translator mod. Or wait for the inevitable global launch.
You should read the manga!
There are also other ways to experience these stories should you not want to sink 100 hours into each game. Persona 5 has a manga, though it isn't finished yet, I believe. I genuinely would not recommend touching the anime as it is not good. But regardless, the best way to experience this one is still the games. I would argue that if you're gonna experience Persona 5, you should just play the game. Persona 3 has 4 movies that sometimes do a better job than the games with its story, and sometimes do worse. There is a manga, though when I read it, I felt like it was kind of disjointed. Persona 4 has an anime and a manga as well. I'd argue that both of these are great ways to experience the story, though they do glaze over the golden content, which is considered canon. You can watch P4G the animation to get golden story bits, but it still is disjointed since it really is meant to be more of a companion piece to P4 the animation. There's also a manga for Persona 1, which a lot of people do recommend. I don't believe there's a manga for Persona 2, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the only way to experience that story is probably the games.
It appears to have been the cause of Morgana's demise.
So that, in my opinion, is the best way to experience the Persona franchise, at least with the modern games. As for Classic, we'll have to see if any of them get remakes or ports down the line. It would be nice. And if you're interested in more Persona, JRPG, and Atlas-related videos, you could subscribe to the channel. And if you found this helpful, I would appreciate it if you leave a like on the video. So, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.